Hi guys, so Muskan Agarwal here again. In the last video, we discussed about client and the server as well as the third component DNS. So last video was all about two-tier architecture. That was the simplest form of system, client and the server. That's it. Now we will move towards another tier of architecture where we will discuss about databases. In this video, we will discuss about databases or data tier. That will add another layer to our architecture, client, server, and database, which will completely which will be a three-tier architecture, right? So system is built on n-tier architecture. There are multiple components in the system. Like we understood about client, server, DNS. Now there will be CDN, there will be a data tier, then cache, and then there will be a VPC completely. Then there will be load balancers, and there are multiple components which constitute a good system. So slowly we will deep dive into each of the components. We will understand them and we'll see how a well scalable, highly available, consistent system is built end to end. Yeah, so let's get started with databases. In last video we just studied about client, server, right? Now, and there was another thing, DNS, right? So each and every system generates certain amount of data. You know that even if you interact with a website, right, it will be generating certain data that this user is interacting with this website for this much time. That is a session data. That data has to be stored somewhere, right? You might have heard about cookies. Cookies, whenever you visit a site, you will see option like allow all, deny all, cookie consent, which is known as cookie consent. They ask you that are you allowing them to give your information or not. These cookies are small text files. They store certain information which is not safe, yet that's why they ask you that are you allowing them or not. And these cookies are stored on our end, client end. Like if I am interacting with any website, let's say google.com, so that cookies, if I'm allowing them to store my data in the cookies, that cookie will be stored on my end, on my web browser. You even in the Chrome, you would have seen an option, clear your cache, clear cookies, clear history data and everything. So you can clear it out, right? These are not safe files, but yet they store certain data. So what I meant by discussing about cookies is that each and every small or big system generates certain amount of data, and every system works on data. Like there are certain data intensive applications which highly depends on data, and there are just applications which just depend on certain amount of that, like the user data, the session data, and that's it. But each and every system depends on data. That data has to be stored somewhere, which is databases, you might have heard of, right? So databases store data. This database can be hosted or can be like kept within the same machine or same layer as the database, or they can be added to another machine or another layer, that a database layer or data tier layer, right? Now we will discuss about the pros and cons of both of the cases. First case, when the database is on the same machine as the server, that is this case, only this. Let's forget now about this. When your database and server are on one machine, on the one layer itself, client and then server as well as database. Now what are the pros and cons of this? Pros is that the communication is faster, right? It's this is known as a stateless architecture. I'll come to this in the next two videos, I think, stateful and stateless architecture. But yeah, understand the communication is easier. Now cons are many. Like there is a security issue in this. If your client is able to communicate directly to your server, they can also communicate with the database and do some changes on it. It's not like there are multiple security things we implement, but it's a kind of chance that they can do so. Second thing, scalability. If you're scaling your system, it will affect database, and if you're scaling your database, it will affect your server. So there is a scalability will be an issue, right? Also, it points out to single point of failure. If your server goes down, if your machine goes down, you will lose all your data. I'm sorry. Yeah. And if you're not replicating it somewhere else, like a data loss is a big amount of risk anyone would take. So that are these are the cons of hosting database within the same layer as a server. So for the better case, we generally move the database to the another layer or another machine, which is known as the data tier. And where the server is hosted, application is running, it is known as the web tier. Now, what are the advantages of this and disadvantages of this is, you can scale independently. You can scale your server independently and database separately. Also, security risk is minimized, right? And no single point of failure. Even if your server went down, your data is not lost. Cool. But everything comes with certain disadvantages. Maintenance, you will have to maintain different tiers of architecture. You will have to scale them separately, right? Also, you have to replicate them, and like a lot of things are included. But it's better than two-tier architecture. Now, this as a whole constitutes our three-tier architecture, right? Yeah. So now there are multiple type of databases. I hope you would have understood client server and databases. It's like the basics of system we are discussing about. Next is databases are of multiple types. Yeah, so it's of relational, non-relational, and non-relational also has multiple types, like the column stores, the document stores, key value based stores, and everything. Relational and non-relational example like MySQL, Postgres, right? And non-relational like MongoDB, Cassandra, HBase, and multiple non-relational are there. Depending on your use case, you can decide any one of them. Most of the developers do rely on relational databases because we have been using them like for 30-40 years, and they can scale up, like they can scale well, they can be maintained well. But non-relational are quite faster in computation calculations, in fetching data, and also, right? Depending on your use case, you can choose any one of them. Like if you want your data to be sequential, and you want to have multiple tables to be joined and then fetch your data or calculate your data, then you will go with the relational databases. Non-relational databases is when you have like unstructured data. Like for example, Instagram post, videos, these are all metadata. These are unstructured. They can be stored anywhere in the non-relational database and can be mapped to user entity. Right, they have nothing to do with computation calculations or sequential, nothing, right? And if you want like the lowest latency, then you will go for non-relational databases. So there are certain use cases when you will decide for non-relational, else you will go for relational. So that's all in this video. I hope you understood about databases, multiple databases, your use cases. If you have any queries, please do drop in the comment box. Thank you. Bye.